in the last stream, we were working on finally getting different bees. We started out, of course, with our vanilla, regular honeybees that we have in this room here. And then in the last stream, we began getting all of the different bees. We got some iron bees, steel bees, coal bees, sand bees, gravel bees, and dust bees. Between streams, I've been doing a lot of work breeding those bees over and over and over again, mostly trying to get as many steel bees as possible. I did go ahead and add some brick walls to the back of the bee enclosures here, just to make it a little easier to kind of distinguish where each cell ends, because when you build everything out of glass, things can get a little bit difficult to visualize. I've also put down little signs above each of the player filters here to denote which bees are which. And if we head on around into this little cell, you'll see that we do have quite a few steel bees. I think we have maybe 12 or 13. It did take a little while to set up, but once you have a couple of bees, you can kind of exponentially grow the number of bees you have fairly quickly. I began by just taking some sieve and sand bees, which are both in here. The sieve bees don't produce anything, so they kind of just fly around in this box. But if you breed a sieve bee and a sand bee, you have a pretty high chance of getting an iron bee. I brought the iron bees around into their little iron box and then combined those with the coal bees, which we can craft to get the steel bees. That one is guaranteed. And then you take the steel bees around, pop them in here, give them 20 minutes to turn into adult steel bees, and then you can breed the adult steel bees with each other to get more adult steel bees, and if you leave them long enough, they will produce a large amount of steel combs, and it has been over 24 hours since I bred all 12 or 13 of our steel bees, and if we go ahead and check over here, you can see that we now have a ton of honeycombs of all varieties available in this diamond storage crate, which I did add between streams because the available space in the item collector here really isn't too big. So the plan for today's stream is hopefully to begin automating the process by which we process these honeycombs, right? And to do that, we're of course going to want to get the upgraded centrifuge, which is basically the same as the regular centrifuge, but much faster, and it can do 3 honeycombs at a time. Now, to make it, we need 35 centrifuge casing, and we need 1 centrifuge controller, which in turn requires 4 more centrifuge casing. So we need 39 blocks of centrifuge casing. Each block is made from 1 block of steel with 150,000 forge energy in the Energizing Orb. So we are going to need basically 40 blocks of steel if we're going to get this going. And so I think what we should probably do right at the start of today's stream here is actually go ahead and make 1 or 2 more of the basic centrifuges and then use those to hopefully quite quickly process a lot of our steel honeycombs here into steel ingots. And you do get 1 steel ingot per steel honeycomb, so we should have multiple stacks of steel ready to go. It's really just a case of processing it into steel in a reasonable amount of time. Chat is reminding me that I can't eat one of these, and I should eat one to increase the variety of food for our extra hearts that we started getting in the last stream. And if we go ahead and grab a little bit of redstone here, we should have some iron over in these furnaces. We do indeed. And so it really shouldn't be too difficult for us to get a couple more of these centrifuges. So I have done a little bit of renovating down here, as you can tell, because there is a creeper here due to my failure to place a torch down in that back left corner. But mostly I've just kind of reorganized all of the stuff that we already have. I've moved the blast brick to this side of the platform. I've moved our lava generator over to here. Right now it is just a lava generator. It's no longer being used to power the magmator because, of course, we now have the Thermogenerator over here producing, I believe, 180 redstone flux, or it should be once we start using some of the power here. So basically all I'm thinking is that if we throw down a few more centrifuges and then we just throw like a stack of steel honeycomb into each one of these. Of course, we do have to hook these up with power. We'll go and grab some cables in just a second, but hopefully, slowly but surely, we should start to see more and more steel in these centrifuges, and eventually, we should have enough to craft all 40 blocks required for the centrifuge upgrade. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if we're going to do that, we're also going to have to upgrade our power situation, because it's 150,000 redstone flux per block, and we need 40 blocks in total, which means we're going to need 6 million redstone flux if we're going to get all of that taken care of. And right now we only have the starter energizing rod, which can only transfer 10 FE per tick. I think we did we crunched the numbers in a previous stream, and it worked out to about 8 hours if we don't speed it up. So we probably want to look to upgrade this at the very least to the basic tier, possibly even further to the hardened tier. And then, of course, if we could get multiple of the hardened tier, that would be even better. Thankfully, this doesn't seem too difficult. For the most part, it's just more dielectric rods, more iron, more nether quartz, and then in the case of the hardened variant, it's more of this energized steel, which we can make fairly easily with iron and gold. So boom, and boom. And there is our second hardened energy rod. So with 2 hardened energy rods, it's still going to take quite a while. Also, I should definitely put a torch down here, chat, so we don't continually have to fight these mobs. Also, I could maybe do with some kind of sword, so I don't have to keep fighting these guys with my pickaxe. Although the rotten flesh is nice to have. And so now, if we throw down a second cable here, we are actually going to run into an issue, and that issue is that our cable is not good enough, because this cable that we currently have is starter cable and can only transfer 100 redstone flux per tick, and the 2 energizing rods that we have here combined are going to use 240 redstone flux per tick, and so we could definitely do with upgrading to, I guess, the basic cable. Surprisingly, this has a drastic increase from 100 FE to tick up to 1.4 thousand FE per tick. So the basic cable here really should be all we need for the time being, at least. So the trouble here comes, chat, in the fact that the Energizing Orb is not particularly easy to automate. So for example, if we take this stack of steel and we craft it up into 7 steel blocks, we need to turn each of those steel blocks into a centrifuge casing. And to do that, we simply right-click it onto the Energizing Orb, and then slowly but surely, that will transform into the casing. The trouble is that, one, it's pretty slow. There we go, it's done. And on top of that, if you try and hopper into the Energizing Orb, it will just keep putting items in. So instead of just putting 1 steel block in and leaving it, it will put in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they won't get transformed. You have to have exactly the right recipe in the Energizing Orb in order for it to be transformed. And so we're going to have to manually place these steel blocks into the Energizing Orb one by one, and doing this 40 times is going to take quite a while. And so I think what we should probably do is we should probably get another Thermogenerator, because even the one we have right now isn't producing enough power. It's producing 180 FE per tick, and combined these are using 240, not including the Centrifuges, which of course using more on top of that. And so we should definitely get at least 1 more Thermogenerator, potentially 2 more, and I think we should also get at least 1 more, potentially 2 more energizing rods to really bring down the time it takes to transform 1 block of steel into 1 centrifuge casing. Alright, so not too long later, and as is usually the case when I say something is hard or difficult to automate, the Twitch chat has come along and proven me wrong, which I'm very happy about. So it turns out that you can actually automate this fairly easily with some basic redstone. So if, for example, let's say get rid of the Energizing Orb here, and let's embed a hopper into the ground. I think we're probably going to have like a chest here for the final product, but for now, let's just do a hopper like that. We can always put a chest here in a second, and then let's put the Energizing Orb right about here. So essentially, what we can do is we can use a Redstone Comparator, which will output a redstone signal whenever there's an item in the Energizing Orb. We can have another hopper right here. This hopper is going to feed the steel into the Energizing Orb, and then if we have a repeater here and here, and we connect those two up with redstone, we are unfortunately missing 1 singular piece of redstone here, but once we have that, we should basically have an automated system for the Energizing Orb that will work. And unfortunately, it will only work for recipes that only require 1 item, so it wouldn't work, for example, if we wanted to make more of the energized steel that we made previously in the Energizing Orb. But for something like the steel blocks into centrifuge casing that we're working on right now, it actually works fairly well. So essentially, if we put our steel blocks into here, 1 steel block is placed in, that triggers the Redstone Comparator, which locks the hopper, so the hopper is receiving a redstone signal and can therefore not deposit the steel block into the Energizing Orb. And then once this has been transformed into a centrifuge casing, it will be pulled out by the bottom hopper, at which point the hopper here is unlocked because the redstone signal stops, and then another block of steel is placed in, and the system repeats over and over and over again. So at this point, all we have to do is just get all of the steel blocks and place them into this hopper. And thankfully, the energizing rods here do work through the hopper, and so this is working just fine. We are still going to have to upgrade our Thermogenerator because we are still slowly but surely losing power there, but we can come back to that in just a second. Let's quickly go ahead and craft up as many blocks of steel as we currently can. We'll get those in over there. We'll refill up the centrifuges, and then we'll look at, I think, upgrading our Thermogenerator. So once again, I have not slept for 3 nights, but this is actually probably a pretty good opportunity for us to get the Phantom Membrane, which we do need if we're going to get that sleep charm. So ideally, we would like to kill one, if not multiple of these. Preferably, though, without dying, which, of course, is a lot easier said than done. So we did manage to kill 2 of them. And although I didn't notice it at the time, one of them did drop a Phantom Membrane, which was collected by the item collector here, which is very nice indeed. I'm going to temporarily put this in here, but later on today we will come back to that and look at making the... Actually, we should do it now, because if I don't make the sleep charm now, the phantoms are going to be back. What do we need here for the sleep charm? We need 1 white dye, 1 red dye, 1 black dye, 1 yellow dye, 4 string, and a Phantom Membrane. It's actually a very easy recipe, especially when we have all of these petals to make the different dyes with. Boom, and boom. So now, hopefully, even if we don't sleep, we won't see the phantoms again going forward. So if we're going to get more power, I think the best course of action is going to be to upgrade our current Thermogenerator. I did mention in the last stream that we could use a block of blazing crystal as a way to increase the amount of power that the Thermogenerator produces, and that is true. You can increase any of the Thermogenerators. You can increase the amount of power that any Thermogenerator produces if you have a blazing block underneath it as opposed to lava. However, to make a blazing block requires 9 blazing crystals, each of which require 4 blaze powder, so we'd need 36 blaze powder in total, whereas at the moment, upgrading from the hardened Thermogenerator to the blazing Thermogenerator only requires 5 blazing crystals, 4 for the capacitors, and then 1 for the Thermogenerator itself, which is going to be about 20 blaze powder, and is going to increase the redstone flux per tick from 180 up to 400, which is a bigger increase than if we were to just put a block of blazing crystal underneath the Thermogenerator. So eventually, I think we will look at getting a block of blazing crystal underneath our Thermogenerator, but for the time being, I'm pretty sure the best way forward for us here is going to be to just upgrade the current Thermogenerator that we have. Now, to do that though, and I have just picked this up and I'm now realizing that I probably shouldn't have, because, oh no, maybe we're fine actually. I was going to say because we do need to use the Energizing Orb here to make the blazing crystals. However, as you'll see here, each of the energizing rods does have a buffer of power, so each one is storing 250,000 FE there, and so we should be able to make all of the blazing crystals in the Energizing Orb, even though we don't have any power actively being made. So blazing capacitors, more thermal plates, we're just missing some redstone, and another batch of tiny capacitors. I think we need 8 redstone in total. We'll take 2 of those, and boom, we get a 400 FE per tick blazing generator, which we can improve in the future with a blazing crystal once we get a larger amount of blaze rods. For now, though, that should be more than enough redstone flux to keep all of this stuff over here ticking away. Quite a while later, and we do now have all 39 required centrifuge casing. We've also gone ahead and put down a bunch of soundproofing here to get rid of all of the incessant clicking that was happening due to all of the clocks and all of the dispensers that we have down above us. And so now we should be able to press forward and actually make this multi-block centrifuge. So the only thing that we're missing here, I think, is 1 more redstone comparator, a block of redstone, and 2 iron bars, and we should be pretty much good to go. I will steal one of these centrifuges right here. We'll use that for the actual craft. And then once we have this up and running, we can look at automatically moving all of the combs out of the diamond storage crate here into that centrifuge. And then from there, I think we want to look at making something like a storage drawer controller so that we can have all of the final output resources, like the actual iron ingots, steel ingots, coal, sand, gravel, dust, etc., in their own drawers and easily accessible all in one place. So Redstone Comparator and Centrifuge Controller. Nice. So the way this works is this is a big multi-block, much like the blast furnace there. However, unlike the blast furnace, I'm pretty sure that this is a 3x3x4 multi-block, meaning it's 3 wide, 3 deep, and then 4 tall. So it's 1 block taller than the blast furnace here. I think for now I will put this directly opposite the blast furnace. I think it's quite possible that in the future we might look to get another one of these. So at that point I might move them ever so slightly, maybe have like one here and one here, just to make it symmetrical. But for now though, I'm basically going to build the exact same little platform that I built for the blast furnace, something a little bit like this. We're then going to put down a base 3x3 of centrifuge casing, like so. The centrifuge controller has to go 1 block up, so it has to go on the second level. I believe it can either go here, 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 or here. We're, of course, going to put it right here. And then the rest of this is just centrifuge block. I do think it is full. I don't think it's a hollow multi-block. Something like this. And you'll know it's right if you right-click on the controller and you get this interface. So it's basically the same interface as the previous centrifuge, but now with 3 different slots for honeycomb. And hopefully, once we get this hooked up with Powah, it's going to be a good deal faster as well. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the centrifuge here can receive power from any side. It can also receive items from any side, and you can also extract the final product, I think, also from any side. The controller must be 1 block up from the bottom in the center of any phase. Any block in the multi-block will import/export items and energy. Yes, it does say it if you hold control while hovering over the controller here. Now, I'm not quite sure how much power this guy requires in terms of like actual FE per tick, but one thing that I am fairly certain on is that we're going to require a bit more energy cable to get the power all the way over there. So a little bit of basic cable later, basic being the one that can do 1,400 FE per tick. Let's do something like this. This is probably going to be very temporary, although that's actually not connecting, which is very interesting. Oh no, that is connecting, it's just not connecting visually. That is very weird. And I hate it. I think going forward, also I do love, by the way, the fact that when you break these and drop them, they somehow get like a little bit bigger than they are normally. But I think what we'll end up doing is we'll end up hooking up the power to the bottom and kind of running this maybe underneath, maybe like around the side or something, to make sure that we don't have this horrible cable just running through our, base here. But what we should be able to do now is place in the steel honeycombs, and right off the bat, you'll see the speed increase there. Just for reference, again, if we put another one in over here, it is so slow by comparison, and that's not even taking into account the fact that you can do 3 at a time here, thus drastically increasing the speed at which we can process all of these honeycombs. Oh, and of course, yes, so chat has pointed out that I am in fact also a fool, because what you can do here is you can craft your honeycombs into honeycomb blocks, and then with the higher tier of centrifuge, you can actually process these honeycomb blocks directly in the machine, thus allowing us to essentially, if we do all 3 here, process 27 honeycomb simultaneously. Not quite as fast, but obviously it's not 9 times slower either, so we are in effect processing things a lot faster. I think for today, we're going to stick with just running regular steel honeycomb through the machine. The reason for that is that I don't think we're actively producing honeycomb that fast at the moment. I think we'll very quickly burn through this backlog here, and then once we're kind of processing honeycomb in real time, I think we're going to be processing them faster than we're using them. Once we get to a point where we have so many honeycombs that we're producing them faster than we can process them, then we can look at making something like the crafter maybe from Cyclic that would allow us to automatically craft the honeycombs into blocks. For now though, I'm thinking that the best idea is probably going to be to move the item collector over to this side of the bee enclosure. Again, bump that range up and make sure that we are set to always on. We'll also move the item cable as well. And it's probably not really worth moving the diamond crate over. Obviously, initially, we do want to process all of these combs. But again, going forward, I think we're going to be processing them fast enough to where we can probably just pump directly from the item collector down and into the centrifuge. And that should work just fine. So if we just run the item cable down like so, and we make sure to once again set this to extract, we should hopefully see these steel combs here pipe down into the centrifuge. It doesn't auto-distribute. It's still fine because, as you'll see, we do have multiple different types of combs, and they do get put in. But it would be nice if, like the Mekanism machines that we're going to get to much later on in the series, there was a little button that let you set it to auto-distribute the combs, so it takes them and does this automatically. But either way, this is fine. For now, we can move this guy and place it down like right about here. And again, set that to extract, just to... Oh, you can't have that. That doesn't work, eh? Okay, that's interesting. I guess in that case, we can just move that down by 1 to here, and then have it extract, like so. That should work, I think, and should put all the combs into the centrifuge. Of course, once this is empty, we can pick that back up and just have everything go from the item collector. But now, Chad, we actually have to find a place to put all of the things that we're going to get from the centrifuge, and that is, of course, where our good friend Storage Drawers comes into play. So the draw controller is a pretty nifty block from Storage Drawers, and I'm going to assume there is a quest for it over in here. There is indeed. There is the draw controller slave, and the compacting drawer. The draw controller allows you to deposit items into an array of storage drawers. So to make this guy, we need 5 stone, 2 redstone comparators, 1 of any storage drawer, and a diamond. Now, we are a little low on wood, although we should have enough, I think, to make at least 1 more drawer here. Like so. We do have the 2 nether quartz, and so getting 2 more comparators really shouldn't be too difficult. I will temporarily throw those redstone repeaters away. And we also do have a good amount of stone lying around as well. So let's see, can we make, let me bookmark the draw controller. Can we make 2 comparators? We can indeed. And do we have what it takes to make the controller? We do. We're just missing a diamond. We currently have 19 of those lying around. So boom and boom, and we have a draw controller. So a very simple example would be over here. If we put the draw controller between the gravel drawer and the sand drawer, what we can then do, if we have gravel or sand in our inventory, let's say we have a bit of gravel and a bit of sand, normally, if we wanted to deposit the gravel and sand back into their respective drawers, we would have to right-click the gravel on the gravel drawer and right-click the sand on the sand drawer. With the draw controller, however, if you double right-click with anything onto the draw controller, it will look at the drawers connected to it, and it will take any items that you have out of your inventory and put them into the drawers connected to it. So if we double right-click here, you'll see it took both the gravel and the sand and placed them both in. That's super useful from like a dumping your inventory kind of standpoint, but it's also super useful in that we can extract from the centrifuge and pipe everything into the one drawer controller, and then from there we can just connect up all of the other drawers for all of the other items that we have here, and they will all automatically be separated into their correct drawer. Now, the question becomes, where in the world do I want to put this? Real quick side tangent here, before I start making more drawers to actually hold all of this stuff. We do produce honey, and it is stored in the internal tank here. Once you hit 10 buckets, that's the max that the centrifuge can hold, it will just stop producing honey. I think we should look at storing that honey, because if we take a look at the honey, which is the one from resourceful bees here, if we press U, you can see that later on down the line, we do need this honey, and quite a bit of it, to make things from different mods, like Applied Energistics, Refined Storage, and that's about it from those 2 mods. And so we probably do want to start keeping a large amount of that. Thankfully, we do have quantum storage in the pack, and so I'm fairly certain it shouldn't be too difficult for us to make a quantum tank. So we'll take 3 regular buckets here and make a quantum tank. And then we could probably do with a fluid pipe as well if we have one lying around. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we do, but then again, we should be able to make a new batch fairly easily. Boom, and boom. Okay, so there's some more fluid cable. Let's go see if we can't start storing the honey here. And I actually think we should probably set up a similar system for lava as well. For now, I'm thinking we can just do something like this and like this, set this to extract, and that should begin filling up with honey. And yeah, you can see that right now it has 10,000 millibuckets of honey. There are 1,000 millibuckets in a bucket, so we have effectively 10 buckets worth. This can hold up to 2,147,483,647 millibuckets of honey, which is just over 2 million buckets of honey. So that should do us for quite a large amount of time. And like I said, I think we could do something similar over here, where we have our cobblestone generator producing cobblestone, our crucibles continually receiving that cobblestone and turning it into lava, and then if we were to put down another one of those quantum tanks at the end of that fluid pipe there, we would slowly but surely build up a nice backlog of lava that we could then use in the future for anything that requires lava. Something like this. Either way, now that we have our 2 quantum tanks set up, I think what I'm going to do, for now at least, is put down a torch and quickly check the mobs can't spawn down here. They can. Let me just throw down maybe a torch right here. And I should probably do the same thing on the back of the centrifuge as well, just to make sure we don't get any unwanted visitors. But just as a proof of concept, I think I'll put the drawers down here for now. Between streams, I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time kind of reorganizing the upper levels of the base. Right now, things are a little haphazardly placed. Like this area is a bit of a mess. This area is fine, but could probably do with being moved. This area I'm quite happy with. I'll probably look to move a lot of this stuff maybe over to here, and then maybe have the storage drawers kind of like right here, if that makes sense. But for now, let's go and make a couple of storage drawers. We want one for each resource, including beeswax. So right now that would be sand, gravel, dust, iron, steel, sugar, and coal. The coal is not currently being harvested. Like over here, there's no clock underneath the dispenser for coal. So right now we're actually not getting coal combs, but of course that is something that I want to rectify going forward. So I think we're going to need about 7 or 8 storage drawers here, which really shouldn't be too difficult. It's just a bunch of wood. Look at that, perfect. Essentially, all we're going to do is for each resource that is generated by the centrifuge, we want to have a storage drawer. So for now, again, just as kind of a proof of concept, we can do something like this. Obviously, not symmetrical and looks a little hideous. We could definitely do with one right about here. But the idea is that we can then extract from the centrifuge that's going to pull out all of those resources. One thing I do love about the item cables from Cyclic is that they do move instantly. And so over here, every single one of those items now has its own drawer. We've got sand, we've got gravel, we've got dust. Actually, I think that's dust and that's sand, but all 3 of those are there. We have the iron, the coal, the steel, and the beeswax. I think there might be one more resource that we're not currently getting, although maybe I'm mistaken on that. Maybe there's not. But yeah, everything should now be being produced and being sent around over into here. And now that we have the quantum tank for honey, we can turn this back on again. I temporarily required redstone signal to essentially stop it before we wasted some honey. But this is working. And so, like I said, between streams, I think what's going to happen is we're slowly but surely going to run through the backlog of honeycombs that we have. I'll probably spend a bit of time between streams, maybe breeding some more bees. If we look in JEI here, and we look at something like the sieve bee is actually used to make quite a lot of bees. It's used to make the aluminum bee, the blaze bee, the copper bee, the Certus quartz bee, the creeper bee, the fluix bee, the fluorite bee, the ghast bee, the gold bee, the iron bee, the lead bee, the nether quartz bee, the nickel bee, the osmium bee, pigman, prismarine, raw uranium, redstone, more sieve, silver, skeleton, tin, and uranium. So basically, we're going to have to get a bunch of sieve bees and breed those with all of the different bees that we have, right? With the gravel bees. One thing that I definitely do want to look at getting is the redstone bee. Thankfully, this is one of the higher percentage chances. So if we take a sieve bee and a dust bee, we can combine those up to get a redstone bee, at which point we're going to start getting redstone combs, which we can then process into redstone. So stuff like that is probably what I'll work on between streams. Like I mentioned before, I'll probably also work on moving this platform as well. Kind of reorganizing things, maybe move it over there, make it look a little bit nicer, and organize it. And I'll probably connect all of these drawers as well up to the system, because there's no point in having, 2 drawers for gravel, sand, and dust. We might as well just kind of merge those with the ones coming out of the centrifuge. But that's the plan. In the next stream, we'll come back. We might do some more bee breeding, depending on where we're at. We do want to start looking towards maybe getting an apiary. These do require nether stars, which I think are most easily acquired through wither honeycombs, which is essentially just a bunch of bee breeding. The wither bee is a soul sand bee plus a wither skeleton bee. The wither skeleton bee is a netherrack bee and a soul sand bee. Netherrack bee is a cobblestone bee and a redstone bee. So it's bees all the way down, as you would expect. But this is going to be kind of the next step up from the setup that we currently have with these hives up here and the dispensers. But before that, I think we'll probably look into a little bit of industrial foregoing. We can use these to get sand, gravel, and dust fairly easily with the Material Stoneworks factory, which can also make glass and dust pretty fast as well. We also might start looking into a bit of Astral Sorcery and potentially some blood magic as well, because now that we have steel, we could look at making some steel casing, which would allow us to get to Mekanism if we do get a tier 2 blood altar, which really shouldn't be too difficult, I don't think. I've not taken a deep dive into the look at some of the changed recipes here, but I think that might be possible. But yeah, and we also do need to, of course, at some point get a metal press as well to allow us to start making some plates and some gears and whatnot. For example, if we look at the recipe for the mob slaughter factory here, which is one of the first machines required from Industrial Foregoing, to make it, we need a gold gear, and the only way to make a gold gear is through the metal press, so we are also going to have to jump in to a little bit more in the way of immersive engineering. For the metal press, we also need leather, so we could do with getting some kind of passive mobs like cows, chickens, sheep, etc. We could do with getting those up and running as well. And we're also probably going to want to get an alloy smelter to start making things like electrum and whatnot, which I believe are required for the heavy machine frame. Yeah, so we'll probably start working on a couple of the other mods in the next stream, as well as, of course, continuing to expand out our bee breeding area. But for now, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream there.